leaving Battle Caravan and Motorhome Club, and we're heading for Battle Abbey. Taking the car, you can walk there, but you reckon it's an hour walk?
It said, Google said it was an hour and 2 minutes walk.
I don't think it's that far. I thought it was 30 minutes when I looked, but anyway, I didn't really want to do all that walking and then do a load of walking around the battle site as well, so I thought we'd save our energy for the look round. It shouldn't be too far. So we're going left out of here?
Right.
Right. Okay.
You've got to watch this road on the left here.
Quite steep getting out of there. Yeah, it's a little bit overcast today, a bit cooler, which is probably not a bad thing.
Yeah, so catch up when we get to the Abbey then.
Yeah.
Straight on.
Abbey and battlefield.
Nice, turning on the right.
Yeah, I do vaguely remember this.
It's impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, can't turn there.
No.
Oh, great big pothole there.
The Knights tournament here over the weekend.
The weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do remember this.
Yeah, we came down in our little Vista, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thought you used to park on the field out there.
No, I remember the car park.
So we came in here.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit wider than it was when we first came. It's not too bad, is it? But pretty busy already. A couple of spaces here. Oh, there's car parking behind as well.
Oh yeah, there is. Yeah. Yeah, it's much bigger than I remember. I just think it was just this bit.
Car parking, well, it's pretty adequate, but I'm not sure you fit a motorhome in there unless it was a fairly short one.
Or you parked on 2 spaces there, which you couldn't do at the moment.
You could pay for 2, yeah, if you were here early, you could pay for 2 spaces in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Parking is free for members of English Heritage.
Come away from there, come on.
£4 for everyone else. And sign here for a walk in Battle 1066 country walk between Pevensey Castle and Rye. Okay. Yeah. Oh, gate's just opening, there you go. Well, it doesn't say how much it is getting for non-members, does it?
No.
No. I'm just waiting for it to open. Here we go. You right there?
Where is it opening?
It's opening.
Is that the right door?
Yeah, we went in the wrong door earlier. Come on then, girls.
Come on.
Got our guide. Walled Garden, Discovery Centre, and yeah, we'll have to have a look on the map. Yeah, so helpful lady there just says follow the signposts, really, the boards, and we'll have a little walk around. We'll do the battlefield first. Here's the first board then. That's the map we're looking at. And it says the Battle of Hastings was fought here on 14th of October 1066, the most famous battle in English soil, on English soil. Its outcome had a profound impact on the history of England. William the Conqueror's victory over Harold Godwinson marked the end of Anglo-Saxon England. Norman conquest introduced a new ruling class in church and state, new landowners, laws and architecture. And in 1066 Battle Abbey was 1070 Battle Abbey was founded here to commemorate the Norman victory, and that's over there.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember the abbey. I remember the battlefield. But
It was an act of penance for the bloodshed of the conquest of England. Over the following centuries, the abbey became rich and important, and a town sprang up around it. The dissolution of 1538 turned it into a country estate and remained in private hands until 1976, when it was acquired for the nation. And there's a visitor centre here as well, and you can find out about the dramatic end of Anglo-Saxon England and the Battle of Hastings. You can then walk over the battlefield, tracing the course of the battle, seeing the ruins of Battle Abbey, end your visit by looking inside the gatehouse at the museum. So the battlefield walk full tour is 30 minutes over variable terrain, or 15 minutes
short tour.
Short tour. Okay. And there's a cafe here which is dog friendly. Very good. This is the Great Gatehouse. So that's that there. So imposing size and elaborate decoration of the Great Gatehouse reflected the power and importance of Battle Abbey, as this was the main entrance of visitors, merchants, traders and Abbey staff bringing produce from the Abbey's own estates. Building led directly to the outer court of the Abbey, where once stood by the barns, stores and workshops needed by the monastic community. The gatehouse was started at the beginning of the 100 Years' War in 1338 and was capable of being lightly defended. Inside it had two lodgings for Abbey officials or important visitors, with a further set on the first floor of the west wing. First floor lodgings are now a museum. Substantial traces of an early 11th and 12th century gatehouse survive in the range in front of you. Okay. Okay. And where that is, they suggest the original gateway lay a little to the west of the present entrance. And pictures of it in 1737 rather. And that picture is in 792.
1792, even.
And that picture is in 1792. Thank you. Go on then, girls. This is the outer court. It says you're standing in what was the outer court of the Abbey, which industrial and agricultural buildings were located. These would have been workshops, forges, barns, stables and storerooms. Many of the inhabitants of the town of Battle, including children, found employment here. The cellarer, an important monk in charge of the community's food and drink, brought supplies for the Abbey in the outer court. The cellarer's account for 1278-79 record the purchase of a chain for the abbot's monkey. In the Middle Ages, monkeys were sometimes kept as pets by people of high status. The sculpted monkey and play equipment were inspired from the original documents and from the Abbey and activities known to have taken place in the Abbey court, even surface route. A little bit about battle formation here. And it says on the early morning of Saturday, 14th of October 1066, two great armies are preparing to fight for the throne of England. Top of the hill arrayed are the English forces of Harold Godwinson, who was crowned king just 9 months before. He has marched at great speed south from Yorkshire, where he's just defeated and killed Harold Hardrada Danish rival to his throne. His army is exhausted from the campaign and its full force is not yet gathered, but fresh men are arriving all the time to swell its numbers. Facing the English on the opposite side of the valley are the troops of William, Duke of Normandy. His army has travelled by land and sea to arrive here. An invader in hostile territory, William's intention is to force a decisive battle with Harold. The English form a defensive shield wall and await the assault of the Norman army. And of course you've also got the Bayeux Tapestry here. We've been to Bayeux, seen the tapestry, which is fantastic actually.
Yeah.
So we're going to go down here. Come on then, Pop. The battle opens to a terrible sound of trumpets on both sides. William's men advance up the hill to attack the English shield wall. They're led by lightly armed foot soldiers and archers. Behind them are the ranks of heavily armoured infantry and cavalry who will drive home the attack. Fighting is ferocious, and above the clash of weapons fierce battle cries and the groans of the injured and dying. But with the advantage of the slope and the united mass behind a wall of shields, the English resist every assault. Yeah. Flag. It says after the ferocious fighting, the first Norman attack falters and breaks. Left wing of the Duke's army, including a group of knights from Brittany, is driven back by the British. At the same time, rumour spreads that Duke William has fallen in the fighting. Terrified at the news, the Norman army disengages from the shield wall and retreats. And as it falls back, the English army eagerly begin to pursue the retreating Normans down the hill. The first crisis of the battle is approaching. So Duke William shows his face in battle to prevent the Norman army fleeing the field. As the Normans retreat in confusion from the English line, Duke William rides out to confront them, lifts his helmet to show his face, cries out he's alive and berates them for their cowardice. Prompt action prevents the Norman army from fleeing and battle is resumed. Calling its young to it, I think. So after rallying his forces, William counterattacks the English. Encouraged by Duke William, the Normans turn and attack the English who pursued them down the hill. Those who have been separated from the safety of the shield wall are surrounded and annihilated. According to a close follower of William, it was the Duke himself with his sword flashing in the sunlight who led the counterattack. So the successful Norman counterattack brings the first phase of the battle to an end. It's probably early afternoon before the first phase of the battle has come to a close. Neither side has won a clear advantage. By now, the men on both sides must be exhausted, although the English are probably still gradually being reinforced. Duke William is under increasing pressure to bring the battle to a decisive conclusion. Once again, he orders his men forward. And it says, from here, it's easy to appreciate the landscape of the battlefield. I'm not quite sure about that. Outline of the hill opposite, which was occupied by the English army, is clearly visible. Its slope has been terraced to accommodate the buildings of the monastery. I think since last time we were here, all these trees have grown up.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a shame, really. I like trees, but...
I think you get more of you when we get past these.
Have a look round the corner. Bit more idea of the... bit more idea of the terrain, how uneven it is. We've got the slope up to where the abbey is now. During the afternoon, the Normans weakened the English line by adopting a new tactic. Now clear that the English are not going to be easily defeated. To create gaps in the shield wall, groups of Normans pretend to flee in mid-battle and then suddenly turn, trap and destroy any English soldiers to pursue them. This particular trick is documented in other battles fought by the Normans. A series of such false retreats proves very successful, but the English line continues to stand fast. Something more is needed to secure victory. You can see the slope here. So Duke William brings forward archers in preparation for a final Norman assault on the English line. By late afternoon, the feigned Norman retreats have thinned the ranks of Harold's shield wall, and Duke William's bowmen are now sent forward to fire into the English line and weaken it further. One of the arrows seems to have wounded or killed King Harold. Normans now begin a last fierce assault on a beleaguered English line. Yeah, by dusk, William was victorious. The Normans finally broke through the shield wall and the English army is routed. And during the final assault, the English shield wall breaks. The Normans begin to slaughter any who stand against them. Those English are going to flee the field, pursued by the victorious Normans. One day, a kingdom has been lost and won. And it's saying on the Bayeux tapestry, the English flee in the battlefield, and in the margin, the dead are lying naked, stripped of their armour. Yeah. Well, I have to be honest, that walk was made incredibly difficult by the amount of sheep poo in there.
With dogs?
With
I mean,
dogs.
obviously you just come on your own.
Yeah, you're all right if you're on your own, but probably if you've got a choice, leave the dogs behind because they're constantly sniffing.
I'm wanting to roll their heads. And
Tara particularly, she loves rolling in sheep poo.
There's plenty of choice, haven't you?
I'm not so keen on it myself.
No.
It's an impressive abbey, wasn't it? Still quite a lot of it remaining. So it says that, there's a map there, so it says William Conqueror founded Battle Abbey in 1070 as a memorial to the Battle of Hastings and an act of atonement for the bloodshed. It was carefully laid out on this hillside on the ridge, high altar to mark the spot where King Harold had been killed, and it was completed in 1094. It housed up to 140 Benedictine monks, and in the 13th century the abbey's growing wealth allowed the monks to replace most of the early buildings with those we see here. Many of these, including the church, were demolished in the dissolution of 1538. There's great park, including the southern part of the battlefield, mostly remained as parkland. And after years of gentle decline, the Duke and Duchess of Cleveland, who lived here between 1857 and 1901, modernised the house, built a new library, restored the grounds. Mature trees and the lily pond outside the walled garden to your right date from that time. This takes us up to the walled garden. Battlefield to vegetable garden. Says the garden behind this wall was part of a 19th century country estate, perhaps a garden and orchard in earlier times. Land here is part of the original battlefield, part of the slope defended by the Saxons. As it faces south, it has good drainage and makes an excellent plot. Monks may have used it as a vineyard or orchard. It was an orchard for the Duke and Duchess of Cleveland. So we're looking at the remains of the East Range. It contained the dormitory and the monastic latrines. The first floor of the East Range in front of you was a single large dormitory or dorter, where originally the abbot and all the monks slept. And to the left is the rear dorter and the monastic latrines. In the 13th century, the abbot moved his own accommodation in the West Range, and both dormitories were largely rebuilt, as you see them now. There's the walled garden. Not much of a garden, is it? Oh, sorry, it's this way, isn't it? I never thought that's the walled garden, isn't it?
It's got some beehives in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a shame. I was sort of expecting something a bit more impressive rather than a load of old overgrown grass.
Oh, I think I know why it's like that.
Yeah?
Because they've got beehives.
I've got beehives in
So
here.
it's for the bees.
Oh, right, okay. So the walled garden is planted today with fruit trees, recreating the work for the Duke and Duchess of Cleveland, who They bought Battle Abbey in the 19th century and were keen gardeners, and they cultivated apples, pears, along with mulberries, almonds and fig trees, providing fruit for the family and servants. A head gardener planted many varieties, each ripening at different times, so that with careful storage they can have fruit all year round. And they used the walled garden as a peaceful private retreat. So on the 26th of May 1538, Abbot Hammond and the community of 18 monks held their final services in the great church that stood here for nearly 450 years. Battle was the last abbey to be closed in Sussex. Government accused the monastic houses of poor religious observances and lax practices, and the monks of various unspecified crimes. In reality, the dissolution of the monasteries was brought about because of the attraction of the vast wealth of the monasteries and their estates. Battle Abbey was given to Sir Anthony Browne, and within a short time he demolished the abbey church and other buildings and sold their materials. The west range before you became a country house and his residence. His ornate tomb is in the parish church outside the precinct wall to your right. The area here and the sites of the church became grazing land, and after long periods of neglect, Sir Godfrey Webster spent considerable sums on the abbey buildings in the late 18th and early 19th century, and even carried out excavations. About 50 years later, the Duchess of Cleveland laid out the area as a garden and constructed a circular path around the grounds. The most important part of an abbey church was the eastern end. Here were the altars and the choir where the monks worshipped. The most ambitious part of the 13th century modernisation was the construction and enlargement of the east end of the abbey church. The plan was inspired by the new abbey church at Westminster, built by Henry III between 1245 and 1272. Abbots of Battle, attending the King's Court next to Westminster, would have seen it and admired it. By adopting the plan and extending the new seven-bay choir to the east, the Battle monks gave themselves spacious settings of magnificence and a grand chevet of 5 radiating chapels beyond the high altar. The sloping ground enabled the builders to include a crypt, and further 5 chapels under the east end, more than doubled the number of available altars, with an increasing number of ordained monks, each needing to celebrate Mass daily. So when William the Conqueror founded Battle Abbey, he ordered that the church's high altar should be placed on the spot where Harold had fallen. The stone slab marks the site of the death of King Harold towards the evening of 14th of October 1066. The church was one of the earliest Norman churches built in England, completed in 1094. It had an aisled building, some 69 metres long. Here at the east end, the aisles continued around the apse, forming a processional way or ambulatory from which 3 chapels radiated. The east end is marked on the ground. Battle was probably the first church in England with this plan, which was then very common in the Loire Valley in France, from where the founding Benedictine monks came from. In the late 13th century, the east end was replaced by a new choir and 5 radiating chapels with a vaulted crypt beneath. The church was demolished shortly after the dissolution in 1538. And the wall incorporates part of the south aisle wall of the 11th century Abbey church. The main buildings were arranged around a cloister on the south side of the church, and sheltered from cold north winds they would catch the sun. The cloister walks or alleys, marked out by the gravel paths, enclosed a garden and adjoining buildings. The north alley next to the church was the sunniest and warmest place for reading, studying or copying manuscripts. Cellarers' accounts record the purchase of rush mats to improve its comfort. There was also a processional route into the church through a doorway at its western end. Earliest cloister alleys had simple lean-to or pentise windows. They was rebuilt in the 12th century, still with open arcades, cold and drafty in winter. From the 13th century, tracery windows replaced these, and the cloister roofs were stone vaulted. Opposite, on the surviving west range, you can see the remains of the arcades. First two bays on the left are the earliest and date from the 13th century. So those are those the remains then?
Looks like it, yeah.
Must have been, yeah. Yeah. Chapter House was the second only to the church as a focal point of monastic life. Monks assembled here each morning to hear readings, including a chapter of the Rule of St Benedict, hence the room's name. Business matters were discussed, deeds and charters sealed, witnessed by all. All monks confessed their faults and were assigned penance. Little remains of it, but excavations confirm that it was originally a simple apsidal ended building. It remained largely unchanged after completion around 1100. A century later it was extensively modernised and given new windows. Immediately south of the chapter house there remains of the inner parlour. Silence was a normal rule, and this is one of the very few rooms where monks were allowed to talk about essential matters. Doorway in its east wall led to the infirmary or monastic hospital. Okay, and that's the parlour over there then?
Yeah.
Where they were allowed to talk. Yeah, that pops, they weren't allowed to talk. Go down in there. The monastic refectory or dining hall had occupied the south range of the cloister. Main meal was eaten in the middle of the day. Monks entered the dining hall after washing their hands in a lavatorium. A wash basin just by the doorway or cloister. Inside the refectory they sat on benches on long tables facing the centre of the dining hall where monastic servants distributed the food. Everyone ate in silence, listening to a reading from the pulpit in the south wall. The cellar's account showed that the monks enjoyed a varied and wholesome diet. Outside Lent and periods of fasting, they were allowed meat for 3 main meals each week. Most of the food was produced by the abbey's own farms, and fresh vegetables came from the kitchen garden. Food was prepared in a large kitchen south of the refectory and kept separate as a fire precaution. That would have been something else, wouldn't it?
Really nice,
Yeah, the hall was largely rebuilt in the 13th century and almost completely demolished after 1538. Stub of its south wall, part of the lancet window, and remains of an elaborate internal tracery decoration projects from the west range, which was extensively reconstructed after a fire in the 1930s. Now have a look in the cloister. The cloister. This is good girls, isn't it? What's your step here? There's a show about Marie and the Margins. There was a female adventurer, 12th century writer Maria de France, lived in a rapidly changing historical period triggered by successive waves of migration across the Channel. So I assume this is telling the story, but the projector in there is broken.
Yeah.
Oh, that's quite something, isn't it? I don't remember all of this remaining, do you?
I do remember this, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do.
So he said this magnificent room has traditionally been identified as a day room for the novices, and here they were trained by a novice master in the Rule of St Benedict, founder and inspiration of the Benedictine order. However, during the long life of this abbey, uses of this room may well have changed. Remains of a hooded fireplace at the south end suggest it could have been the warming room where they kept warm during the winter. Over there's a wall cupboard under the timber stairs which had a wooden door and probably held books. Grandest of the 3 surviving 13th century doorways led to the cloister walks. A small doorway in the southeast corner led to a stairway and a latrine. The walls would have been originally plastered and lime washed with columns of Sussex marble and brightly polished. Oh, just climbed up the stairs. And this is the upstairs. Oh wow, there's quite something here. Dormitory. This huge room was a dormitory or dorter where the monks slept. It dates to the 13th century and was originally a single open space without any heating. Monks slept communally and the single beds were arranged in rows along the side walls. The floor was tiled and the walls were covered in white plaster, painted with thin red lines to simulate masonry joints. The room was lit by the tall thin lancet windows, and the lower parts of which are closed using wooden shutters. In 1369 the roof was covered with wooden shingles, but by the time the abbey was suppressed by Henry VIII these had been replaced with tiles. And the small fireplaces date to the late Middle Ages, when the dormitory had probably been divided into individual cubicles, providing the monks with more privacy and comfort. After the suppression of the abbey, the dormitory was used as stables or a barn, with the roof surviving until the 18th century. Probably would have been quite warm. The sun's coming out now. Go up there.
Well,
Poppy's going to see if he can.
Yeah. No, obviously not.
No stairs. It's a long way up.
I think there were stairs at one time.
I think at one time, yeah. Yep. Almost definitely. Oh, it's a shame, Pops, isn't it? Poppy's most disappointed. English weapons. It's all about Anglo-Saxon map of the world around 1025, 1050. Seal of Godwine and Godgoyina.
With a population of 2.5 million. As a result of this day's fighting, 7,000 men are dead on the field.
There's Rollo, remember Rollo from Vikings?
Yeah.
William Longsword, Duke Richard I, leading to William the Conqueror. Because they were related, of course, weren't they?
Yeah.
Ethelred the Unready married Emma of Normandy.
We got Canute then.
King of Denmark and Norway.
Yeah.
And Harold Harefoot. It's not as heavy as I thought it was going to be. Oh, right. Don't think that's meant to be quite that heavy. Well, getting a bit crowded in here, so Tara was getting a bit frantic. There was a lot of children in there. She was getting a bit panicky, so we've had to come out of there. It's a pity. It could look quite interesting. Go on then, Pops. Let's do a bit of climbing. Hang on, puppy. There we go. Got some more rooms there. Let's just have a look at the rooms. It's very nice. Coat of arms of the coat of arms of Battle Abbey. Right, Pops, we'll go up there in a minute. All that personal hygiene and ritual cleansing. Oh, so look, I think this is the smallest room, perhaps. There he is, the garderobe. So by the standards of the day, this latrine offered a high degree of privacy and comfort, used by the occupant of the adjoining room, probably a senior monastic official or an important guest. A window to look out, yeah. Rubbish pit, and there's some of the stuff they found in it. It's an intramural staircase. So it was only recently discovered hidden behind a cupboard. Built in the thickness of the walls, it rose to a small mezzanine chamber in the gatehouse's northwest turret, and an identical staircase was located in the wall behind you. Over there, yeah. With access to the 3 other turret chambers from the second floor, careful thought was given to provide in this room with 5 secondary spaces, possibly used for storing important documents. Some quite nice views. Car park down there. See the car. Town down below. Much of the land you can see was owned by Battle Abbey. William the Conqueror granted the monastery all the land within a radius of 1.5 miles of the abbey's high altar. Abbot of Battle had power over both church and secular life within these estates, and the abbey was one of the richest monasteries in medieval England. The town of Battle grew up to serve the needs of the monastery. Many of its residents were employed by the monastery. In the 14th century, the abbey spent the substantial amount of between £600 and £650 annually on goods and services from the town, which was the largest in East Sussex. The centre of the town retains its medieval road plan, and many of the buildings you see date to the Middle Ages. In front of us is the 13th century guest house where important visitors to the abbey were accommodated. The towers were added by Sir Anthony Browne, who owned the abbey after it was suppressed in 1538, converted the guest house and the abbot's house, which is now occupied by the Battle Abbey School to the left of where I'm standing, so over there, into a private residence. Yeah, thought we'd have a little look around the town of Battle. Quite a busy high street. Yeah, quite a busy little place. I'm just enjoying a cappuccino in Burton's restaurant. Well, just outside Burton's restaurant, but just watching the hordes of, well, children at the moment and people going in. So it definitely pays to get to these places early.
It's 2 coach loads just gone in.
Yeah. Never be able to read any of the boards or anything. But yeah, it's been a good day. You enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's a pity that it's so busy.
The high street's really, really busy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's noisy as well. but
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, this is nice here.
Yeah. So another load going in now.
There's 3 loads.
There's 3 coach loads.
So where have they parked the coaches?
Well, I don't know. There must be. Well, I think the coaches just dropped them off.
Right.
I think they're just queuing up to allow them in. Yeah. We did well tea, Poppy, and Witties.
Around there.
You around there? What are you doing down there?
You've just had 2 gravy bones brought to you, haven't you? And a bowl of water.
Yeah. Yeah, very dog friendly. Oh, get out this way.
Yeah, exit.
Exit. Yeah. So there is some parking down there, isn't there? We've seen some camper vans parking down there, additional parking.
That's where the school kids are parked.
Oh right, yeah, preparatory school parking.
It's a bit tight down here as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe this was the original one, I remember.
No, it was definitely the ward one. So there's a couple of camper vans parked down here. So there you go, you can find some parking down here. Just wanted to have a look.
If you come early.
Yeah, come early would be, yeah, definite recommendation.
Because then you can perhaps go in the corner there.
We were wondering where a couple of camper vans had gone. Or if you're a short camper, you might be able to fit in one of the car parking spaces.
Anyway, enjoyed the visit, didn't we?
Yeah. I think what we did find when we brought the van here was this turn here.
It was very tight, yeah. Yeah, because you've got this brick wall, haven't you?
Yeah, I think we were quite new to motorhoming at the time.
Yeah. And then I think we came out to this busy high street.
Yeah.